Okay, I think
All
it has
right.
started recording. Yeah.
All right, Lance.
All right, guys. First off, thank you everyone for joining us today. Like I said, I'm Lance. I'm a consultant at OneBridge. Right now, I'm doing a lot of our Shiny work with one of our clients, and I'd like to share a little demonstration of one of the packages that's helped me a lot. Considering that the applications I'm working on for the client they're all going into production, so this is a package that's really helped me with that. So first off, we all already know that it's really easy to prototype applications with Shiny. Um, the package itself provides a lot of methods for the user interface and the server logic, like stuff for user input, stuff like plots and images. It offers great control over the layout of the user interface, and of course the straightforward reactive server logic that comes with Shiny. So we're going to start off today by demonstrating how easy it is to build a simple data visualization app. I took a little bit of time to kind of figure out what I wanted to use for this. And I thought, why not look at some COVID data, since that's the reason we're not all sitting together at the OneBridge office right now. Um, so I'll go ahead and take a look at that. So you guys can see the console now, right? Great.
Yeah.
Good. All right. So first off, just really quickly to demonstrate how easy it is to create a Shiny app, especially with RStudio, is they actually have a snippet where you just type Shiny app and press tab, and it inserts all of the boilerplate to make a Shiny app right there. And I actually have a prototype here written already. There's not a lot here. I'll go ahead and explain what I've written. It's just 50 lines of code. So we have some COVID data here. That was, let's see. So our World in Data, it's an organization that kind of aggregates data and cleans it for you. So it's really nice data that we can use. So very minimal data processing needed for this. Perfect for a little demo like this. So we read that into the global workspace. Then we have the UI function that just creates a UI output. What this does is it reads the UI output from the server function. And so we have the server function here, and here's the UI object. And we have this pointing to a list of the other UI objects. So what we're doing with this data is, so it's really simple. All we're doing is we're having the user select an X variable, a Y variable, and then R is going to plot that just on a line graph. And so for the X variable selection, it's just a select input. And we're using the column names of the COVID data that we read into the global environment. The same thing for the Y variable. And here's the plot function. It's just, we're just using ggplot here, nothing crazy. So once we run this, you'll see we have the inputs here, and we'll have the plot output over here. The user can select one of the variables from the data set here for the X variable and Y variable. So we'll just do something like, we'll make date on the X-axis, and we'll put total deaths on the Y-axis. So we'll see as the days move on, the total number of deaths obviously increases. This is cumulative. By the way, if anyone has questions, feel free to interrupt me. Or if you're too bashful to interrupt me, I mean, I'm looking at the text message box, so you can send a message if you want. All right, so one of the things you might notice about this is really clumpy. There are lots of dates. The labels are kind of overlapping. So first thing you might think when you're building an app with this data is, hey, like maybe I want to filter some of this data. So we'll go ahead and try and do that really quickly. And this will kind of segue into into my next point about Golem. So right now we're not using Golem yet. We're just building something very simple with base Shiny. So what I want to do is I want to create a filter for, so we'll look at the column names of the COVID data. One really good filter variable would probably be location. So we can kind of look. So it looks like this is the country. So we'll create in the user interface a filter input for the location. This is just another select input. So it's basically gives all of the unique values in this vector to the user as choices to select. And then what we need to do is we need to create a filtered data set, so a reactive data that reacts to what the user selects here to create a filtered data frame that we then pass on to this plot. So we'll call it filtered data. This is super simple, especially with the tidyverse. So we're just calling the filter method here from the tidyverse dplyr. We're filtering the location variable to whatever the user selects with the input location. And so then we'll take this reactive, and instead of using the base COVID data in this plot function, we're going to be using this. All right, so you'll see now that the plot is empty because we haven't selected the location yet. So I'll just set up the variables first, and we'll select a few countries here. And so you'll see the graph reacts. So obviously, as we select more locations, the total number of deaths is going to go up, since you can't have negative deaths in the country. And the great thing about Shiny is that it's very, very simple. The graph reacts automatically when the user selects this. Now, say for instance that you actually you don't really, say for instance you're actually making an app where the user can upload their own data, and you don't always know that the location variable will be in that data. So we want this filter input to be dynamic. You don't always want to say, hey, give them the choices for the location variable. You want to say, give them the choices for whatever variable they choose to filter. And so that kind of complicates it a little bit. But thanks to modules, Shiny modules, this is going to be way easier to implement. I'll show you this now. There's actually another snippet in our studio called Shiny Mod, and it inserts boilerplate for a module. So we're going to call this filter mod. So one thing about modules is that you always need to remember to namespace the module. What that does is it allows us to, so you'll see I have this output UI, which is just super simple. In all of the modules I create, I have this just output output UI object. And as long as you namespace it, everything that happens here doesn't collide with stuff that happens on the server level. We have the output UI here, but since we're namespacing this filter mod, everything's going to be good to go. So we're going to finish writing this filter mod module. So what we want to do is we want to let the user select a variable to filter, and then we want them to select the values to include in that filter. So we're going to make a tag list variable. So we'll use UI variable to allow the user to select which variable they want to filter. So that's going to be a select input. This is the function that you use to make sure that your inputs are namespaced. You always need to do that when you're working inside a module, that is. So we're going to call that variable. I'm going to leave choices blank. I'll show you that in a second. All right. So choices. So the choices on this are going to be the variables available in the data. So we're going to say names of data. So now that we have this, we know that this module needs you to pass data to it. So in this filter mod function, we need to make sure to add it as an argument. So now when we call the module from the server function, we're going to be passing the data to this module, and then it'll use that data to calculate the values for the choices. And so now we'll make the values. And here, so what we're doing here is that we're going to present the user kind of the same thing that we did on the server function for the X and Y variables. We're going to present the user all of the unique values in whatever variable they choose here. So we're going to actually create a reactive object to give that to them. So we'll call the reactive object available values. We'll go ahead and set that up now. So available values is going to be, we're going to subset data first off. And then we're going to subset it by this, whatever variable the user selects. So we're going to be using input variable here. So that will take, so the user interface will first off present all the variables available. The user will select a variable, and then it will calculate all of the unique values in that variable, give them to the user there, and then they'll select those. First off, we need to do unique, and we'll sort that too in alphabetical order just to make it easier. So then we need to figure out what we want to return from this module. So I think that in this case, it's probably simple just to index the data and return. Yeah, it'll probably be easiest to return the indices that match the user selection. So we'll say something like filter index. So we'll create a filter index and then we will return it. So the goal here is to call the module, index whatever the user filters, return it. And so that on the server level, we have this index, and then we can just index the COVID data, and that'll be our result. So here, to create the filter index, we're going to, I'll just do which is great for indexing. So we're going to say which data input variable input values. So it's going to tell us which of the data points in the selected variable match what the user has selected. And so this module will return a reactive value. Does that make sense to everyone so far? Is anyone lost? Hopefully not. Speak up if
I
speak
think
up.
I think the I'm curious to see how the module fits in, because
Right.
I've never worked with modules before, and so this is all like even just using a module is new and exciting for me. So
Oh yeah, good. So the module is all set up now from what it looks like. I'm sure we'll run into some issues, but nothing that we can't fix. So now we just need to call this. So the way we do that, first we're going to insert this UI into our server function. So instead of this filter, we're going to insert the dynamic filter. That'll be filter mod UI, and we'll give it a namespace. We'll call it. So that will give us the user interface logic. And then we need to call the server logic. So you do this with Shiny is just the call module function. You give it the module, which is filter mod. The ID is going to be filter. Add that the module accepts. And so we have this data argument that we need to pass, and that's just going to be COVID. So this part, just to break it down, this line of code will handle the server logic of the filter mod, which is this big block. And then we're just directly calling the user interface logic here, which is defined up here. So every module has a user interface function and a server function, just like the app. The app takes a user interface function and server function. Modules are just little pieces of apps that you develop independently.
so they're kind of like, I mean, you might say that a module is like a widget then,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Where you have a smaller piece of the user interface and maybe some server code that goes along with it, and you can plug that into, like, maybe you're plugging into this particular application right now, but maybe if it was in its own file, you could say, oh, I have another application over here, let me plug this same module into that application as well,
Yeah,
so that you could
exactly.
reuse the code. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the end idea is so I'm kind of doing it rough here just to get a start. But the idea is for each module that you create, you kind of have a separate file that you keep in a structured folder, and so you can actually just source the file in whatever project you're using, and the module is ready to be used.
Okay.
So returning a filter index. So here, when we're calling this actually gives us the return value, which is the filter index. So we'll actually assign that to the variable filter index on the server level. And so now we have this, which the user has defined. And when we are making the filtered data, we're just going to index it like this. We're going to scrap the filter function, and we're just going to say that. So that will apply these are row indices. So we're going to apply the row indices to the COVID data to get the filtered data. And I'm feeling pretty good about that. So we'll go ahead and run it and see what happens. Cross my fingers. All right, nothing.
In this case, it didn't even show the plot though, right?
Yeah, it
So
didn't.
Yeah, I have to say one of the things about Shiny that frustrates me is the difficulty of debugging it. And there are some tools for debugging it, but I don't find them super intuitive or handy. So you're kind of left searching around like this.
Oh yeah, yeah. Actually, so Golem fixes that problem too. Because it's a pack, it creates a package structure. There's actually a folder of tests, and in your development workflow, you can run unit test. It just makes unit testing way easier. Hopefully, I'll get to that soon when I get this working. One quick trick is so print statements are really good for debugging. So in Shiny, what you want to do is put a statement inside an observe block. So when you have reactive objects like this, filter data, that's kind of what I want to print. So we're going to observe that, and then we're going to print that. And we'll see what we get. Here we go. All right, so here we might need to require index. So what this does is it waits until the value is available. That is until it's not empty, and then it performs the calculation. I feel like it's trying to do this, it's getting an error, it's trying to plot it, and it's just stopping the app. So we'll require that and see. Nope, still wrong. Let's try. Put the observe block in our module. Print the filter index. There we go. So the filter index is empty. It's not even showing. So the UI outputs, you also need to namespace those. That's why the UI isn't showing up. Rookie mistake. Come on, Lance. Nothing. Let's just really quickly. So I know there is a data method in base R. So we're going to actually rename this just in case there's a collision there. I don't think there is, but so we'll rename that X. So every time we call data, we just want to replace with X. So it's reading the names of X just fine. The user interface still isn't showing up.
Yeah, we were really mean to Lance and asked him on Sunday afternoon to put this together for tonight. He's a real champ.
Let's see. Yeah, sorry guys. This is kind of a doing it on the fly here, but
I'm learning a lot just watching you.
good. If anyone's saying anything that I'm missing, please feel free.
I'm trying, but
let's see. So just reading the names. Let's try the single brackets this. Y variable. Filter. Yeah. So we need namespaces too. There we go. Any more namespaces I need to do? Let me just go through really quick. All the UI is done. The inputs.
What are some of the clues for when you would use a namespace and when you're not using a namespace?
So if I wasn't so nervous, I would have detected it automatically. But usually when the user interface doesn't show up, that means that there are some, because when there's namespace collisions in your user interface, Shiny just doesn't show them, and it doesn't tell you why. So usually that's your first sign. If you're using modules and the user interface isn't showing up for that module, you probably either need to namespace it, or if it's on the server level, unnamespace it because there isn't a namespace there. So I actually think that should do the trick there. Great. And new cases. And so we'll select our filtering variable. We'll say location. Oh. Location. So here.
you just need a comma, right? After your input variable. When you took the double brackets away, I think there was one other place.
Thank you. Yes. So, and then we'll sort this. Yes, thank you.
Wow.
All right. Well, that's working now. So now to expand on that further, say we want to allow the user to filter on multiple variables. So say location and date and ISO code. Obviously, we can't do this because you can do one variable at a time. It's going to mess up if you only do that. So we want to give the user the option to kind of like have a plus button here, so that every time they want to add a filter, they just click the button and it inserts this module, and they can just do it over again. That's actually a workflow that I use a lot, especially in these data apps. I try and make them as dynamic as possible, and modularizing the code like we are here really helps.
So that module that you just had, can you launch that again? The module that you just wrote up, that is the select variable input field and also the select values input field. That's one whole, like that's a module.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly. Yep. So these two user interface fields here correspond to these user interface definitions here. And then the server logic that goes in the background that actually indexes the data, that's what this is.
Okay.
So one really big thing about using modules is, so apps is because we have it here in this manageable chunk here. Every time we need to manage just this portion of the application, we can just open up the file that corresponds to that. Makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
All right, so that's done. It took a lot longer than I thought it was going to, but on to so kind of what I want to talk to you guys about today is Golem. Let me bring this back up quick. So yeah, so even when once you start adding modules and functionality, you can start getting complicated really fast. So that kind of was the motivation for Golem, and is my motivation for using Golem, especially for production apps. So as you build out your application with nested modules and these dynamic modules and tons of UI and reactive components, maintaining and building the app even more can get super complicated. So this is what Golem fixes. And kind of the way that Golem is, it kind of reinforces you, it encourages you to do best practice with modules and documentation and testing. So before that, actually, let me just demonstrate really quickly how Golem works. So all you need to do is install Golem. And then you call create Golem, and we'll call something like COVID package. So what it's doing here is it's actually creating an R package for your R Shiny app. So we'll click this and we'll see what it does. So it's gonna start a new RStudio project here, and it gives you all of the infrastructure. You can. This is probably looks familiar to you. It has a descriptive file, namespace file. It has an R directory with all of your scripts. So this is where all of the individual modules will go, as well as the application configuration and stuff like that. And also, you can use this method, use recommended tests. That'll create the test infrastructure for unit tests that you want to develop before you deploy. So really quick, before we get into that, I'll just rebuild what we just did using Golem, just really quickly. So, so you'll see here. So this kind of corresponds to the UI function that we wrote in the earlier app, which it was just way simpler here. Oh, I saved over it. Oh, well, there we go. But it was just literally just UI output, and then I called the UI function. So here, the reason that the user interface method here is so complicated, Colin Fay actually, he wrote a nice blog post about this. He went through all of the ways that you can deploy Shiny applications. So that's to like RStudio Server, RStudio Connect, to shinyapps.io and Docker. And he kind of did a review of all of the methods that you can use to deploy. And he developed this kind of infrastructure to be able to handle all of those simultaneously. So you don't need to change any of this. there's actually very, very little customization you need to do to deploy it to different spaces. But just moving on, so that's the reason why you see so much here. So just really quickly, so we're just going to call it UI, and then we'll go to the server file. I'm really wishing that I didn't save over that file now, because I was gonna copy and paste it here. Unfortunate, but you know, it's a demo. That's what happens when you're doing a demo. Things go wrong. I'm not too worried about it. So we'll do something way simpler. So first we will, in this run app. So this is where you create the global workspace with. Actually, I'll do it here. So we'll read the data here. Actually, just gonna make a plot here just to make it easy. Just gonna map, because I'm just gonna demonstrate the filter functionality here. So we'll just, you guys get the gist about the X and Y variables, I hope.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do that static here. We'll do date for the X variable, and we'll do total deaths here. Then we're gonna call the module indices. So there we'll so we got to create the module like we did last time. It just has this handy function called add module. Call it filter mod. To do that, it creates the, so this is the file I was talking about. It has the user interface definition here, and the server definition here. It actually inserts all the boilerplate for the documentation you need for the modules, so that when you build the package, you can just do the question mark filter mod, and it gives you a help page here in the RStudio console. Super helpful. So I'm not forgetting namespace here. Shortening all the variable names. So we're doing, still sending the data argument. Spacing that. Sorry, I didn't mean for this demo to just be me typing really fast on here, but trying to do this very quickly so we can get to the meat of this. So we're doing sort unique. This is the available values, and then we're returning the filter index, which is all right. So actually, here Golem also gives you what you need to put in the server function. So here's what we'll put for the user interface. Adding the filter mod. The call module.
So it looks like there might be like another best practice here in the way that they've named this new module, calling it like mod underbar filter mod server filter mod underbar filter mod UI. In that they kind of prefixed it with that mod part to let you know that, hey, this is a module.
Yeah, yeah, that's something that they also reinforced. Yeah, that's a very good observation. And that they're also trying to reinforce the function. So when you create helper methods, they want you to prefix it with func, and then if it's relevant to only a module, you'll say like func, and then the module name, and then whatever the function name is.
Okay.
Yeah, so you definitely like they're kind of namespacing it the same way that Shiny does with these underscores here, but it's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Then, so this is the package. So I'll go ahead and Control-Shift-B, and RStudio will build the package for us. And obviously in this console here, it'll tell us if something goes wrong. Our tools isn't installed. I think it is installed. Yeah. Great, Caro isn't installed. Shiny is installed. All right, so this might actually not work, but never fear. I'll just put all of this into the global workspace, no big deal. Then we'll run here. Oh gosh. Well, so I won't demonstrate it, but I'll show you guys. So I've kind of already demonstrated. So this this R folder here, that's where all of your modules will go. And so it really Golem really makes this easier by giving you really easy to use methods. So add module there. We'll add the module, create all the boilerplate for documentation and stuff like that. It also gives you options for deployment. So we have a Shiny apps.io, Shiny server, Docker file. So you'll see kind of if you want to deploy to like Shiny server, it'll add this file that it just loads all the code that you need, so that when you push this package to Shiny apps, this will make sure that the application runs even though it's built as a package. So really great work by him doing this.
Oh, that's an interesting feature, because I didn't think about, I mean, kind of putting everything into a package feels like a good idea, but then I didn't think about what kind of side effects that has if you are platforms.
Yeah, right,
So,
exactly. Like what would shinyapps.io do if you uploaded like the dplyr package? Like, how does it know how to handle that?
mm-hmm.
Right, because it's a package. So it's actually interesting. This is actually kind of hacky. So the way he did it is this Shiny app keyword here. Shiny apps kind of recognizes that and then says, "Oh, this is a Shiny app," and then runs it as a Shiny app.
Because it's
So
looking for like in app.r.
it's actually looking for this
What
method
is like
here.
oh, okay.
Yeah, and so he put do not remove this comment there to make sure that you didn't remove that. Otherwise, it wouldn't.
Yeah, that's clever.
So Golem actually, so also here, it gives you the option to add favicons. It gives you a resource directory here, just like any other package. So here you can put stuff like CSS files or custom JavaScript files for when you really want to get fancy with your application. It really makes that easy. In fact, yeah, activate JS. So that gives you a bunch of methods that he wrote, kind of that help you when you through Shiny development. So, and then I've shown you tests. Back to the slideshow here. Yeah, so really that's it. So really, the really big points here is Golem just provides a framework that just makes all this really, really easy. You know, it kind of makes you do what you should be doing anyways. Like I was telling them before this started, you know, before I wrote Shiny apps that were meant to be in production, you know, I didn't know about Golem because, you know, I didn't really need it. I wasn't looking for something to help me unit test my apps. You know, I didn't need that yet. But now that I'm using it, you know, this is definitely best practice. Like everyone should be using this. Hopefully, I've demonstrated that, even though you know it hasn't worked all according to plan. But maybe when you give it a shot for yourself, you'll see why. It makes it easy to implement unit testing. And then the third thing, of course, it standardizes the deployment process. It really simplifies it all across all of the services that you can deploy Shiny to.
Yeah, I know sometimes getting the right libraries and stuff set up is it's usually the hassle that I have with different platforms and building our applications in general. What would you say throughout your experience with building Shiny apps and using Golem? What would you say are some of the big like roadblocks you might have hit, or things that maybe roadblocks that you hit that you know might have that Golem might have solved for you?
definitely documentation was a big one for me. So the client I'm with now, they're really big on documentation. So just the fact that Golem puts when you add a module, it's kind of like saying, hey, you have to fill this out. Like this is something on your to-do list. Like you need to go ahead and fill this out. So that was kind of something that that wasn't so easy for me to do before Golem, because so many different ways to write documentation. Like there are like the title. There's actually a title tag here and and a description tag here, and that's how I was writing my documentation before. But the Almighty Hadley in his our package documentation book, he suggested to never actually write these out. So I think that's the Golem package took a lot of motivation from books by Hadley Wickham. So they kind of extend that to their boilerplate. And there's also lots of different ways to order the arguments here. You know, there's like params argument, there are export argument, keywords arguments, and Golem kind of sets it right there in front of you, so you don't really have to worry about, you know, especially if you're a perfectionist, you know, you want everything to be the same way. This just makes it a whole lot easier.
Yeah, that looks like the is that like the Roxygen format for documenting that they're following there?
Yeah, that's what I believe it is.
Okay. Yeah, and I can't tell you how many functions I've seen people write where there is no documentation for the function. Maybe because somebody like just started off and they said, okay, let me just see if this thing works. And once they got it working, we never go back to our code once we get it working.
Yeah.
But because this is in a package format, then they're kind of putting it right in your face and saying, hey, by the way, you have to document this thing. And which also means that when you build the package, that there's going to be documentation built automatically for you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So it actually worked here for the run app. So this is the R Markdown file that works. But yeah, trust me, that was me a few years ago. I was writing these really big shiny apps with no doc, and God forbid if some other developer came across that, I bless their soul. I'm so sorry, but so I've learned my lesson. Go and help me with that.
So how would a developer, as a user of the Shiny app, wouldn't necessarily ever see any documentation? How would an enterprise share the app or the package, and how would a new developer interact with it?
There are packages called I think it's called package down, or there are some things that will take your package and all the documentation and actually upload it to a website, a browsable website, where, you know, kind of all the code links are anchor links to other pages, so you can browse it on the web. Or if you're in the RStudio console, actually, you can just do the so I'll do question mark web package. So here our only document is that. So we'll do. So here's the help file for that. It actually generates help files here that you can view in the RStudio console.
Okay, cool.
Any more questions? I had some questions about just about Shiny, building Shiny stuff in general. I noticed that when you were building the first application, you had an input. Like, I guess it was I don't know, was it a select input? But I know you were able to kind of select multiple items within that input field at once, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I was wondering, have you tried that? Like, how many inputs can you kind of, or how many choices can you hold in there before before you see like kind of degradation in performance? And I mean,
Yeah,
I suppose even with the filter module that we created, that is going and doing some work in the background and saying, oh, these are the choices that we should place into the we should allow people to select from, like, the original
hmm
data set.
yeah,
I'm just wondering how big can that be before you start seeing
yeah.
problems.
I'm not sure how at what point when that becomes a problem. But if you as a developer ever run into that problem, because the way I wrote the app is that every time the user selects a new value, the plot recalculates. So you could have it set up to where you would use isolate or kind of like a some sort of event handler, so that kind of lock the calculation of the plot to a button, so that the user can first select all of the values that they want, and then only when they click a button, the plot will recalculate, and that will kind of limit the memory usage there.
Okay.
Did I answer your question? I think I heard it correctly.
Yeah.
And Lance,
Yeah.
that
I think
that was cool.
that
Sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, that answers
Good.
my
I
question.
was just
Yeah.
going to say that was new to me, that particular widget. Could you show it again real quick?
Which one? The select input?
Yeah, the select input.
All right.
It was a little different than the select input I'm used to. Is it? Because it's not just called select input, is it?
It is actually just a select input. We added this argument called select as. It's just select input, but there's an argument called multiple, where it allows you to select multiple
Okay.
values.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, do you happen to be familiar with the select eyes input?
Yep, I'm a little familiar with that. I think it's imported from JavaScript. It's just
Do you know how it's different from a select input?
it lets you.
Sounds like they might do the
Yeah,
same
they're very
similar
very similar.
things.
Honestly, I would never use select as input, because it creates input variables. It creates multiple input variables, and I think there's some JavaScript handling that Shiny does in the background that makes it a little bit more complicated to process, especially when you're doing stuff like bookmarking, which can get really complicated, especially if you're using JavaScript stuff. But I would definitely recommend just sticking to select input unless you really know what you're doing or you're prepared to really dive into what select as input does.
Okay.
Anything else, guys?
This was a
Any
very
other
informative
questions?
presentation. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Thank you. This was, yeah, very informative.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for presenting. And probably over the next couple of weeks, we'll work on getting that video up on YouTube. And thank everybody for coming and participating in this month's IndyUseR presentations. So I think there are, I can't remember. I know we have another presentation set up for next month. I believe Shri was going to be talking about, I forgot. I've
Time
forgotten the
series?
topic now.
Time series?
But,
Fable.
oh,
Yeah.
Fable and time series data.
Yes.
So we'll be back next month. I think we're on the third Tuesday of the month. And we'll see everybody then. Feel free to stick around if you want to hang out and chat for a little bit as well.
All right, guys. Thanks. Lance, thanks again.
All right.
Talk to
Thank
y'all
you.
Thank
later.
you, Lance.
All right. Welcome back. We're here with Lance Upton from OneBridge. And in our last conversation, we had kind of this introduction to Golem and building Shiny applications. And today we want to just go through some examples and get more into depth with how Golem works. So Lance, I'll hand it off to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Derek, for the introduction. Like you said, I'm Lance, a consultant at OneBridge in Indianapolis. And I'm doing a lot of work with one of our clients with R. And last time I shared one of the packages that I've been using that really helps a lot. And so today I'm going to do kind of an extended demonstration based on the stuff that I did last time. Yeah, so with this extending time, I'll go into more detail with what Golem can do with this project. All right, so I'll go ahead and share my screen here really quick. Derek, could you let me know if you can see that fine?
Yeah, I can see that.
All right, great. So basically, yeah, prototyping with Shiny is relatively easy. But of course, as development progresses and the application gets more complicated, so does the further development you do in that project. So last time we created a really simple app to demonstrate this principle. It was this prototype one here. So basically, we got some open source COVID data, and we built this app here that lets the user select an X and Y variable and lets them filter the locations. And it basically just plots it. So we'll look at this really quickly, just to recap. So yeah, so we have the X variable, the Y variable, and we filter locations. And then with iteration 2 here, we actually built this module called filter, where we passed in the data, and then we would generate these inputs to select the variable and to select values for that variable to filter. And then it would return indices. And then the return from this module would pass to the server. So basically, we've kind of extended the functionality of this application by adding a module, but it's still all in the same kind of single file structure here. So there's multiple objects here, but still you can see pretty simple with Shiny. You just run that script and it will source the modules. And so here we call that filtering module twice. So that shows up twice.
Can you check to see if you're sharing the whole desktop or just the RStudio IDE?
Oh yeah, sure. I bet you're not seeing the output.
Yeah,
screen,
we don't see the rendered application. So.
All right. Screen 2. So I'll run this. Let's see.
There we go.
You see it now?
Yeah.
Great. So yeah, so here's the base app. Sorry, you guys didn't get to see the first one, but this was the base app. So you select an X variable, Y variable, and a variable to filter. And then we have, yeah, so that was part of the filter module 1, and then the second filter module here that we called. So the reason I did that is because with this data, you'll see, so we'll put date on X, we'll put something like total deaths on Y. And so with this data, it's really nice to filter by date and to filter by location, just because there's so much data. So we'll select some dates and some locations. Just because there's so much data, it just, when you plot it all at the same time, the data is small. So we decided to modularize this filter so that we can call it twice. So what's kind of the second step in your kind of like Shiny tidy code progression? You know, there's that single app style with just the app, the UI, and the server definitions. And then there's the part where you start adding modules in separate objects in the global environment. And this final step, the third step, is where Golem comes in. So in this step, we're going to be leveraging the R package infrastructure to separate all of these different code components, like filter and the server, into a lot way easier to manage files in a file system. So to start, Golem just has this package. So obviously you'll need to install Golem just with install packages Golem. So it has this method called create Golem. And basically what this does is it checks which what your current working directory is. So here I'm in this dev directory, that's fine. And what it does is it'll, so you put a string argument here to whatever package, whatever you want your package name to be. So I'll just call this like COVID test. And it will, what it does is it creates a directory inside this main directory here for your package. So we'll run this. Oh, looks like we can't have underscores, so I'll just change that to a dot. It's nice too that it does all those checks for you when you're creating it, because when you try to submit this package to CRAN, if it doesn't pass those checks, then you're kind of out of luck. So it does that for you right at the beginning, which is nice.
It looks like it created a whole project for you with all the infrastructure that you need to create the package.
All of this, yeah, it creates all of this for you. So really, you can just you can build this right now, and it'll build fine. You know, it gives you all of the boilerplate, which is super nice. And actually, it has this folder here called dev. Is perfect for people who are new to Golem, because this pretty much tells you exactly what to do, like from start to finish. And he's been kind of building on this every release. So the last Golem project I did, it's changed since the last time I've done it. So it's pretty good at keeping us updated. So you'll start here at the, just it's numbered. So you start at 1. He has sections where you can fill the description file. What this does is it, edits this file here, which is it gives the metadata for your package, and it tells R like which packages to import, stuff like that. Other important stuff, it gives you an option to use licenses and readmes, code of contact, lifecycle badges, news articles. You can write markdown files for releases and stuff like that. It lets you tie it to a Git repo. And so this is the next thing I want to talk about here is tests. This is really good for people who develop packages. The reason I pass through all these here is because, I don't do a lot of open source development these days. So I don't really write code of conducts, or I don't release new statements, stuff like that. But if you do that sort of thing, that's when you would use these methods up here. So this method here, use recommended tests, what it does is it creates this test directory here. I think I touched on this very briefly in the first part. Yeah, but it sort of gives you this default test here where it kind of tests if your app actually launches. It'll launch a simulated process here, and then test if it actually runs. In fact, I think we can actually run these now. Oh, I need to build this first. All right. So we'll run through some tests here, but so we want to run through these tests. So to run through the tests, we actually have to build the package. So it's a good chance to go through this here. So you have the kind of tutorial that he's given you here, and there's also this run_dev file here. And what this does is whenever you want to test your package locally, this is the file you'll go to. This kind of just clears your session and your environment on a new slate, and then rebuilds your package and runs it on your station. So it's a really, really fast way to test it without rebuilding it all from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we have the package now. Now this should expect sign tag list. There we go. So now, we can use these tests. So basically, when you run these, if the test passes, it won't return anything. So when we run these, you'll see that they all pass. And then we have this up here, test check. That's through the console. But if we do there's one test package, I think. That's what you use in the console. Yep. So when you're in the console, so when you're developing, if you use the method test_package, this is in the test that package, and then you write your package here. What that does is it'll go through every test in this folder here, and it will run it, and it'll give you this really descriptive results thing here. This is really
Okay.
nice. Really nice. And some things that I like to do here is I'll take this test package and I'll go and put it in my dev here, so that you test it when you're developing, which can be useful if you need to test a lot.
Yeah, so it's kind of like an iterative development process. Just automatically run the tests right before you launch everything.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe not something you want to do if the tests are super exhaustive and they take a lot of time to run, but it's good for small projects.
Mm-hmm.
So in fact, I actually wrote one small test to demonstrate. So I wrote this test here. I'll go back to my package. So basically, we have this COVID data, and so I wanna just do a really quick test on the COVID data to see if it's valid. Just some arbitrary test that doesn't really matter, just to kind of demonstrate this testing function. So the COVID data has two of these variables: total tests and total cases. So total tests would so this data is country level. So it'll be each row is a country, is an observation for a country. So total tests here will be the total tests in that country for that date, and total cases would be the number of positive results in that country for that date. So total cases should it should make sense for total cases to always be less than total cases, or sorry, total tests. So if we take this ratio here, none of them should be negative, or sorry, none of them should be positive. Get that right. But so we write this test here. Yeah, so we write this test here to expect that none of these evaluate to true. So we say expect false. It's like a gymnastics there with the Boolean.
Well, even the way it's written is like you have to do an any. You have to kind of do the opposite of what you think it should be, kind of thing. So.
And there's this, like, which direction is that supposed to be pointing? Like, maybe guess.
Right.
So here, this COVID. So now we have this problem here where we, last time when we had the single file, we would just read CSV, the COVID data, into the global environment. But now we're in a package. So what do? So Golem has a solution to that. It is here. So this method called useDataRaw. So let's run this really quick. Data raw. And so that creates this file dataset.r inside the folder called data raw.
Mm-hmm.
And so what this script is meant to do is you're supposed to run this script when you're building your package to generate the package data.
So does it include, so the COVID data was already in like another package, right?
I think it is in another package, but the way I used it, I just
Mhm.
downloaded it to a CSV and I was just reading it.
Oh, okay.
So
And so
we'll
this, yeah, what did, when you said use data raw, what did that end up doing? That created, that did the read of the COVID CSV.
not yet. It hasn't
Oh,
done that
okay.
yet. Yeah. So far, all I've done is I've told Golem that I want this package to use raw data from somewhere.
Okay.
So it created this data raw directory and it created
Mhm.
this file here, dataset.r,
Mhm.
with this boilerplate here. So it's telling us here to prepare the data set here. And then at the end, you'll use this command, use data. And that will save the object from the global environment into the package data.
Okay.
So that when you load the package, it will load the data that you saved here.
All right.
So I have something here. Yeah, so basically what I did is I copied I'm doing the same thing here. It's just we're
Mhm.
copying the data file into the folder and then we're just reading it. Just copy this. All right. So now this is in the data raw file, directory. So we'll run this. So we'll read the COVID data into the global environment, and then we will use this to attach it to the package. It does it by saving it here. So it puts it into the data subdirectory and saves it as this RDA file type.
Okay.
So when someone attaches your package, this gets read into the package environment as a data object. All right. Part of the boilerplate also is so these files. So we have obviously the UI. From the single file, this was just an object definition, but here we have whole file here. Yeah, we touched on this last time too. I think Golem does a really good job of covering all of the bases for deployment. It defines the UI and the server here appropriately to kind of handle all of that. Here really quickly, I'm just going to copy and paste the UI and server definitions from our prototype really quick. All right. And then, all right. And so next, so we have the base UI, and then we have these modules here, remember, for the user interface. So we'll need to add these to the package also. So here, that's when we'll use this add module method here. And we'll call this filter. It creates this boilerplate here. So this is in the R directory. And Golem is kind of enforcing this best practice of namespacing your modules with the mod prefix here.
Right.
So it does this. Here's the filter, and then we want filter server is here. All right. So now, really quickly, I'm going to see how this does, how we're moving along. All right, object mod filter not found. Let's see. Because it's mod filter server. Just call it. So this is UI. That was just the mod filter UI and the mod filter server. It's just I have to match it up with what these are called. So here's the mod filter UI.
Named in there. Yeah.
Just namespace differences. So back to run dev. Try this again. All right, let's see. It's actually that. Actually, I have great. So at this point, I'm kind of going to transition into the package that I prepared for this talk. To kind of, this is kind of like a baking show where you like kind of show the recipe and then like you bring out the final product.
That's right.
So that's what this is going to be. Just to skip off like the debugging that I'm eventually going to get to.
Yeah.
And it's an inevitable thing in these kind of things. So I'll show you here the. So this is the same server file, except here. So we have these arguments here selected here for that filter module that I did. And I kind of show you. What the purpose of that is. That just makes it easier. If you pass in the selected variable, it'll just tell you to go ahead and select date here and total deaths here and location here and date here. So it just makes it a lot easier. So you just need to select stuff here. So these are the two filter modules in action here. Nothing showing because that's back in January. There aren't a lot of cases, but here's May. There's some cases showing.
Okay.
But yeah, so this is I mean, this is you see, this is a lot more complicated than kind of what we started with. You know, we have these multiple inputs here, but I mean, the code base, we just have a lot of these functions, but I mean, they're all. We have a way to document each of these. You know, it's really clearly separated.
Yeah, I think the organization is one of the big keys, and as you said before, like implementing those best practices. Because as you went through the instructions, where it was telling, okay, first start here, then do this, and then like you had step 3 or whatever. There were a lot of things in there that I was like, oh yeah, you know, if you're putting together a package, you probably do want like things like a license, and you probably do want like a code of conduct and all this other stuff that that they're kind of explicitly saying, here's how to do it, run this command, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I'm gonna try and see. There we go. Just to demonstrate how easy. So this leverages their Roxygen 2 package, the documentation style. So basically, just so you have it. Golem gives you this boilerplate here for documentation, and it just makes it so easy to document your package. It kind of just gives you like these tags here. It's kind of just in my mind, whenever I open the script and work on it, it's just kind of just a bell that rings. It says, "Hey, have you completed this yet?" And really, it's so helpful because when the next guy comes along and is working on this, it gives them this really simple user interface where you just type the question mark. This is the RStudio interface, And it gives you, it renders the help documentation, just gives it all here.
Right.
Also, if you're using stuff like they have blog down, I think the blog down package, or some blog packages where you plug in your package and it renders all the help documentation, turns it into a website. So that works if you do your documentation here.
Mm-hmm.
And one other thing I wanted to mention, so we'll go ahead and just keep going through these dev scripts. So we went through the data here. All right, so we did modules in here. So let's kind of, this really reinforces how Golem is encouraging us just to follow best practice. Especially with namespaces, it's really, really enforcing that. So here, even with your helper functions and utility functions, it kind of encourages you to namespace them. So here, maybe we had some functions for the filter module that were just specific for the filter module. So we would type add underscore FCT mod filter. What that'll do is it'll in this directory we have in the R folder, it creates just this file here, FCT underscore mod filter, and just another layer of organization here.
What does the FCT stand for?
I think it stands for function.
Oh, okay. When I see FCT, my mind automatically goes to like factors, and I'm like, it doesn't seem like factors would make sense there, but okay.
And actually, it says FTC here.
Yeah.
So actually, I may even be wrong when I say function, but the method is FCT, so I think it is FCT.
Yeah.
So let's see. Yep, it doesn't say. So and it gives you the option to build vignettes. And really quickly, so just make sure this runs, and we'll demonstrate the final step, which is deployment. And we'll just see just how easy deployment is. It's crazy easy, actually. Here's our app. That's great.
Okay.
So here on script number 3, so we have these 3 methods here based on where you want to deploy. So we have RStudio Connect, Shiny Apps IO, and Shiny Server. There's also Docker, but I'm not super familiar with Docker, so we won't do that today. Shiny, if you have Shiny Server, that's very simple. I'm actually going to demonstrate Shiny Apps IO now. Super easy. So to do this, all you have to do is sign up for a Shiny Apps IO account. It's free, and you can create project with a certain number of free hours, I think. And then there's basically there's a package called RS Connect, and you just plug in some API tokens, and your account will be connected. And then all we need to do is just add this. That'll add this file here, and this is kind of the so let's app.r file here. It adds it into the base directory of your package here. And what this does is it lets so here this keyword here, this file being here and this keyword being here tells I believe it tells Shiny Apps IO that this is a Shiny application and to run the application with this command here.
Okay.
But either way, this file here is for the purpose of getting the app to run on the server. All right, so we'll go ahead and deploy this using this command here. So again, you'll need to have RS Connect installed, obviously. Let's actually build this first. Four. Interesting.
have you previously built this?
I
Or
have.
how you tried to do? Maybe there might be, like, I know the RS Connect package drops a little directory inside your project directory, probably the
Ooh, okay.
RS Connect.
Yeah.
So you might be able to get away with go in there, go in something, and
You can just
maybe.
delete that maybe?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. 'Cause
Let's do
I
it.
recently ran into this and I was like, I mean, with another thing, and I was like, oh, what's going on? And then I just deleted it, and uh, my project got deployed. So
All right. It looks like it worked. It's good
mhm.
news. Um,
So yeah, it'll go through and grab all the dependencies, send the files and stuff out to Shiny Apps IO, and then build it on Shiny Apps IO, like download all the dependencies and stuff there.
yep.
So it's
Yep.
interesting that they're using the RS Connect package here, because normally when I see people uh, uh, deploying their application to Shiny Apps IO, they would go through the if they're going to use the RStudio IDE to perform that deployment, then they would go through and I think there's like a little right next to the Run App button at the top. Yeah, that one. There's that button, and that will go and deploy. Like, you'll fill out your. I guess you'll probably have to fill out either some token information, or maybe you have to log in. But it would do this same stuff using the RS Connect package, um, kind of in the background. So
Yeah, this is nice. It's pretty quick too.
yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, yeah, even so in this in the where is it? This run dev file. So yeah, just like quick tip, I would definitely. So if you have tests, use that method that it's called test underscore package. Uh,
Mhm.
use that in the console, it works just fine. So here we are, the Shiny Apps IO pack file. It opened up automatically. So this is just public.
Okay.
All you need is a profile to do this.
Yeah.
Just to demonstrate that this works, we'll select some countries. We'll select some dates. And there it is. We have a working package on Shiny Apps IO.
Wow.
Built with
Yeah, I
Golang.
think that kind of going from beginning to end with building a package and getting it installed. Uh, all the instructions are written out for you how to do it. You know, they got the helper functions in there for you. That's really convenient.
Yeah, it's really great that you can really just open up this folder and just start here. It just gives you a very concrete starting point. And it's all, you know, I've been working with Shiny for probably 8 years now, maybe. And
Mhm.
so I think I know best practice when I see it. And, you know, this is
Mhm.
pretty darn close to best practice if I've seen it. And they're
Yeah.
really, it feels like they're really striving towards that. And, you know, it's kind of one of my main goals when I develop is best practice. So I can't
Yeah.
recommend this package enough.
I love that that you know, they're consolidating all these best practices to kind of tell you, hey, these are the things that you need. Because if you're a novice and you're kind of putting together a package for the first time, you know, it may take a number of times of putting together packages and then studying how other people are putting together packages and deploying them in order to get all of this knowledge and stuff set up, you know.
Yeah, yeah, it's really nice. I can't wait for this to. I feel like it has blown up a little bit, but I feel
Mhm.
like it still has room to blow up, and I can't
Mhm.
really wait for this to really get popular within the community to really standardize things. I think it's going to
Mhm.
help.
Have you heard of anything new that they're talking about coming down the line, or?
I haven't really.
Okay.
Um, In fact, so actually, I've they have actually the GitHub is really active, and he uses a lot of labels. So especially for first time users, actually, I've taken the kind of going through the issues and picking out the good issue for first time user and kind of pondering like, is it my time to dip my toe into open source?
Yeah.
Very close to doing stuff like that, but yeah. Yeah, so that's all I have to demonstrate about the package. Do you have any more questions about like the process or?
No, I think it was pretty clear when you went through it, you know. I really appreciate you taking the time to put together the recap and showing us the kind of like the beginning to end process of how to use Gollum to put together your Shiny application and get it deployed. You know.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, they make it easy with this package. It was an
Yeah.
easy job.
All right, so we'll get this posted up on YouTube, and then also if you have examples that you want to share with people, then we can get those posted on or get links to those on GitHub.
All right, we'll do.
All right.